Go, 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 go.
3, 2, 1, 4 tires.
Still there, inside.
What a jump! What a jump!
The track is wet. It's good.
Still there, clear.
3, 2, 1. Green flag, green flag.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Four and Fuel podcast. I am your host, Dom Caplupo, joined as always by Steve Ray, Wesley Riddle, and Sam Dooley. We're here for our second 2026 season preview. This time it is Joe Gibbs Racing. They were represented by Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, and Ty Gibbs, with Hamlin getting second in the championship. That's why we're doing Joe Gibbs Racing second after Hendrick Motorsports. And without further ado, let's jump into our second place championship finisher, Denny Hamlin.
Denny Hamlin, the people's champion this year of 2025. Started 35 races. If you remember, he missed Mexico City due to the birth of his son. But out of those 35 races, was still able to snag 6 wins. That would be the spring races at Martinsville and Darlington, Michigan and Dover. And then towards the playoffs, we had Gateway and the fall Las Vegas race where he got his 60th career win. Ended the year 14 top 5s, 18 top 10s, an average finish of 13.97, an average start of 11.9, 5 poles, just over 1,000 laps led at 1,024, and with his year 4 DNFs. And as Dom mentioned before, this was the second time that Denny Hamlin has finished second in the championship standings. So for Denny Hamlin, he was 3 laps away from winning his first NASCAR Cup Series championship, but unfortunately, we all know how that story ended. This was, I feel like when Denny Hamlin looks back on 2025, of everything that happened on and off the racetrack, was certainly an unforgettable year. Some things definitely wants to forget more than others, but I guess the big thing to take away in 2025 for Hamlin off of the racetrack was the lawsuit between 2311 and NASCAR, which ultimately they ended up settling on just a few weeks ago in favor of the teams. Stats-wise and on-track performance, Denny has shown no sign of slowing down at all. This was by far one of the better seasons that Denny had. Just statistics very similar to 2024, and you can never count Denny out pretty much at any racetrack except for maybe road courses. So I expect big things from Denny Hamlin going forward in 2026, and you just hope and think maybe one day he'll be able to get a championship, and it might just be 2026 if it was any indication of how 2025 went.
Well, if the storybook writers got a hell of a script, then Denny Hamlin will get the championship in 2026. But yeah, Chris Gale, first year on top of the box of the 11 team, seemed to really thrive, and really a great season for Chris Gale. It's unfortunate that one call for 4 tires at Phoenix is kind of what is overshadowing what was an amazing season for him in his first year with the 11 team, getting 6 wins and being a contender almost every week outside of the road courses. So, Hamlin's going to put the work in. Well, hopefully he's got the motivation going into 2026 to do that. Obviously not the easiest of circumstances as this whole year, just like Steve said. So if Denny Hamlin keeps putting in that work and has that motivation and drive with less distractions now, he could be even more dangerous than he was in 2025.
If you look at Denny Hamlin too, like just in his overall career, he's one of those drivers that hasn't really taken a dip in performance. And it's just because he keeps putting the work in. And you both already mentioned that. And I feel like for him, he's a driver every year. Even I feel like, until we start seeing the signs of him slowing down performance wise, if that ever does happen, he's going to be a threat to win on a weekly basis. And I think that Chris Gale did a pretty good job on the box overall throughout the whole season. Um, and even with the distractions they had overall, with the lawsuit, Hamlin was still able to just put himself first and his mind first, and was able to, um, honestly be driver of the year. We gave him our driver of the year for 2025 in our award show. Make sure to check out that podcast episode. But yeah, he's just always going to be a threat, and I don't think that 1 year difference, for him, I don't think we'll see any signs of slowing.
All right, so for Denny Hamlin, I have the over/under win total sitting at 3.5.
I'm going to put my entire mortgage, I'm going to put my house on the line for the over.
I'll take the over as well.
I was leaning the under this year, um, only because I think that there's a couple other guys we're going to talk about. I feel like that are going to make it more challenging. I think this year, just due to this being some of their second seasons, for their new teams. So I think that it's going to be trickier for him to go out and get more than four, but it's definitely obtainable. And for that reason, I think it's going to be right around that. Um, it'll just be a matter of 3, 4, 5. I think somewhere in that range every year for Hamlin is easily obtainable and possible. But I'll take the under.
Yeah, I think the under. I'm going to take it this year. I mean, I took him to get 0 last year, and I looked like a fool. But I'm going to take the under. Just going to be hard to win 6 races again. And listen, yeah, Hamlin keeps putting that work in, but look at Kevin Harvick. You didn't think he was just going to fall off a cliff after winning all those races in 2020. So we'll see what happens, though. And who knows, like Hamlin could just not regain that motivation after everything that's gone on since that kind of caution came out with 3 to go at Phoenix. So we'll see what happens for Denny Hamlin. But I'm going with the under.
That's going to take us into our second Gibbs driver. That's Chase Briscoe. Um, I feel like all signs kind of indicated that this was going to be a good season for him, just with Stewart-Haas closing down. But I think he exceeded everybody's expectations of going out there and being just on par, if not the best Gibbs driver on more weeks than not than his teammates. And, his two being Hamlin and Bell that are always up front. Ty Gibbs still, we'll talk about him, but um, Briscoe had an exceptional year for it being, obviously it was his fifth full-time season. He knows how to get around the racetrack, but to be able to adapt to a car that's been established in the sport, to take on a sponsor like Bass Pro, to have a new crew chief in James Small that hasn't really been in, the crew chief role for a long, long time. I think that Briscoe had a phenomenal year. And if you look at the numbers, everything improved, of course. Finished third in the standings, was able to make the playoffs with his win at Talladega. Won 3 times, including the Talladega win. He won at Darlington and Pocono, 2 of the hardest tracks on the circuit. 15 top fives and 19 top tens, besting his 3 top fives in 24 and his 9 top tens in the season prior. His average finish jumped up 6 spots to a 12.6. Average start 9.9. So he was qualifying. I mean, he had so many poles, 7 poles versus 0 last year. So he was always up front, putting himself in the spot. Just needs to be able to execute, run a full race. I feel like a lot of the times we saw him fall off, and he wasn't able to show everything that the car was capable of, and maybe he was capable of. 4 DNFs, 1 less than last year, led 884 laps, a career high for him. And then, of course, I mentioned Darlington, back-to-back Darlington wins. Like that's the hardest track we go to, and he looks like a champ out there. So I think signs are going to point. Now, you look at drivers' history, sophomore years are sometimes tough. And I know it's not a sophomore year in Cup, but obviously second year at Joe Gibbs. So it'll be curious to see if he takes a dip in performance or if he's able to go out there and just light the world on fire. Because just with how well he did in 25, I think that he could have an even more exceptional year in 2026.
Yeah, Chase Briscoe, it's kind of that first half of the season. It's kind of took a little bit to get used to having cars that fast. Honestly, he said it himself. He's just not used to the car doing what he needs it to do all the time. So once they kind of honed in that, I mean, that second half of the season, he was arguably the best driver on the circuit. That second half of the season, right there with his teammate Denny Hamlin. So start off like that, and Chase Briscoe is going to be a dangerous force to be reckoned with in 2026.
I agree 100%. When it was announced that Chase Briscoe was going to take over for Martin Truex, I was a little bit skeptical as to, why they chose Chase Briscoe. I felt like there were some other drivers that could have went into the 19, and it's certainly the first third to about the first third of the season, did not look good, but as mentioned a lot of times, it seemed right around the Coke 600 was when they started to finally figure things out, turn the corner. And then, yeah, like you said, just a force to be reckoned with. I mean, put on a clinic in the Southern 500 at Darlington. So now that he understands the kind of the pressures off of Chase, and he understands of how this car works and how Joe Gibbs Racing operates, I don't think they're going to have that lag time during the first 10 to 12 races this year. I think they're going to come out firing on all cylinders and definitely be a force to reckon with this year.
Yeah, it was a huge growth year for Briscoe. We already knew he was a really good player, um, a really good driver, but he got some good equipment this year, and like we were talking about, it took him a while to get adjusted to it, but once he did, the wins started rattling off, and the success really happened. So it was great to see. And like I had mentioned in our award show in the last episode that we did of 2025, um, he had my like moment of the year personally because he was out there signing autographs and stuff an hour after he won at Talladega in the fall. So great guy, and also turned into the back half of the year was a great performance showing for Chase Briscoe.
And I guess just one thing to note, obviously, with the shift in the schedule, our season finale this year is going to be back at Homestead. He won there in the trucks in a finale race. He wasn't in the championship four in, and then he won there in 2020 for Stewart-Haas in the Xfinity Series. In the season, he won, I think, 9 or 10 races. So, it kind of lines up where he could be an easy threat, right? And if he makes it into the Final Four like he was this year, but more to a track that's, I feel like, in his wheelhouse. He won at Phoenix, his first career Cup race, and didn't have this pace there in the championship race this last season. But we're heading to a track where he knows how to win. If he makes it to the Final Four, he'll be another threat to win the championship, just like he was this year.
All right, so Chase Briscoe, also set him at 3.5 wins for his over under.
I think this one's interesting. I can't say with as much confidence with Chase Briscoe as I can with Denny Hamlin. I'm going to take the over. I'm still going to take the over because, like we were talking about, his second half of the year when he really got adjusted to being with Joe Gibbs, he was really good. So if he rolls that over, bank rolls that into 2026, we could see a huge season from him, scored 5, 6, 7 wins, right? But at the same time, the end of the season I don't want to say a fluke, but it could have been, just kind of some the combination of things running together right, and then that combination might not show up to start the season or at some point during the season. So I kind of in my head I have him chalked up for at least 3 wins. If he gets to 4, I'm not really sure. But like with him, it feels like anything's really possible with his talent and how good the cars are at Joe Gibbs.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over as well. We talked about it during our Hendrick episode of, how important qualifying is. And with 7 poles on the year, that definitely helps stay up front and battle for those stage wins and things like that. It doesn't put you as far behind the 8 ball to start the race. So, with that being said, yeah, I think 3.5. I definitely see Briscoe getting more than that this year.
Yeah, I feel like the signing of Chase Briscoe to Joe Gibbs is kind of a testament to what Joe thinks of Chase as a driver. And, just him being in that car already, he could have a sophomore slump, but I feel like that Joe put his trust in Chase as possibly becoming a lifelong staple with the team. He wouldn't just sign somebody temporarily. I know they've kicked other drivers out of the ride, but I feel like that, um, for Chase to be able to carry the banner of Bass Pro, that's commitment. Um, I think that this is going to be a season where he can go out and just dominate and execute over his teammates. Just with Hamlin, obviously, again on the back end, he'll still be competitive. Bell had a little bit of an off year. I think that Briscoe could definitely excel. So give me the over.
Yeah, that's gonna clean sweep, I think, the over here because that team was so fast in that second half of the season, and I just don't see that stopping. The only thing that could stop that team right now is the pit crew, which that pit crew, when they're on, they're one of the best in the business, but they can go into some slumps and they make mistakes, a lot of mistakes. So we got to be clean on pit road, and James Small just needs to make some better decisions. One of the things kind of overlooked at Phoenix in the championship race was Kyle Larson put two tires on. Chase Briscoe was right with Kyle Larson going into pit road, and they put four tires on it. So what's the call there? I mean, you have to throw a Hail Mary, and James Small put four tires on his driver as well to make him restart, I believe, outside the top 10. So that's just one thing. I think James Small has a little more improving to do, I think, before Chase Briscoe is going to go out there and win 7, 8 races. But I think he could get to that 4-win mark this year for sure. And that'll take us to Christopher Bell, another fifth place finish in the championship standings. He did that in 2024 as well. He had 4 wins this season. He won the first Atlanta race, Coda, and the first Phoenix race, all back to back to back. And then went on a 24 race winless streak, and then won the Bristol night race. But he did have that win at North Wilkesboro in the All Star race in between all of that winless streak. He had 13 top fives, 22 top tens, an average finish of 11.19, an average start of 12.9. He had one pole this season, 282 laps led, which is kind of jarring, and 3 DNFs. Now, I say those laps led numbers are jarring because he led 1,145 laps in 2024. So, Christopher Bell did not spend nowhere near enough time in the lead this season in 25 as he did in 24. And you just kind of felt it. It felt like Christopher Bell was kind of fading into that Chase Elliott area where he was, a back end of the top 10 car, but never really that threat to win races after he won those 3 races in a row. And it's just kind of what ultimately got him eliminated in the round of 8. He was consistent, but just didn't have the firepower to go out there and win each week and rack up a ton of stage points and kind of put himself in a position to make the championship four. You didn't I mean at New Hampshire, he is the king of New Hampshire and struggled there. They Gateway, you saw the emotions kind of boil over for Christopher Bell. Finished 7th and got that, and after the race blew up on his team because he felt like they had the best car and took it and made it a 7th place finish. So execution on that team. It seems like Christopher Bell doesn't agree with a lot of the strategy they seem to do every week. So got to get, the driver and the crew chief kind of back on the same page here if Christopher Bell is going to make a charge back to being a front runner week in and week out.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at Bell's season as a whole because I feel like, and when we did our predictions last year, you said it like it seemed like he was going to be a guy that would easily threat for just being the dominant guy of the entire field, and for you just kind of look at his wins, right? Atlanta super speedway style, Coda, obviously great execution there, being able to get the finish. I mean, that was an incredible finish, but you know that and Phoenix were probably his two dominant decisive wins, and then Bristol was kind of unknown curveball kind of crapshoot where he wasn't even a really dominant guy in that race. It just circumstances kind of put him there in position. So, um, can he go out there and have a better season for sure? He might have less wins, but he could easily lead 1,000 laps, and it wouldn't be a shock. But it's just a matter of after this season, can he perform better than Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe? Because I feel like those two are going to be again the guys, just from what we saw in the last season alone, the guys to beat again, especially in the Gibbs staple.
Yeah, Christopher Bell put together a great Winston Cup Series season. He had the average finish of 11.19, which was almost 2 spots better than his average finish in 2024. But again, he got those 4 wins. They were all kind of, the three was spread out from the one in Bristol. So just never really talking about him winning races there at the end of the season and really being a serious threat. But he had 22 top tens, which is towards the top of the series. So the consistency is there. It's just maybe they changed the format to a 36 race season or even a 10 race chase. That really could benefit Christopher Bell, as that's what he's really been good at, is racking up points the last 2 seasons. But yeah, what the system is kind of called for, it's just kind of not been what that 20 teams strengths have, you know, lended towards. So I'm going to throw his over under as well at 3.5 wins, since he got 4 wins in 25 and 3 wins in 24.
I will take the under on this. Yeah, I'm going to take the under on that.
I'll probably also take the under just because when you I've taken the over on Hamlin, I've taken the over on Briscoe. You start to run out of races. And also I think that he'll be extremely consistent. I think he'll get to 3 wins. Just don't know if I put him there in the 4, 5, 6, that area. Uh, so I say you could pencil him in probably for 2 or 3 wins, but I don't think he gets to 4 or 5.
I'll go a little different here. I'll take the over. I think that it just seemed like an off year overall, and I feel like the crew chief change, their earlier part of the season was definitely not ideal. It killed the momentum that they had going, and it seemed like they were never able to bounce back. So I think that he's a guy that can go out there and dominate a race. I think there's about eight to ten drivers you can say that for, where you feel good about them dominating, and I think he's easily one of them. So if he's able to just kind of put himself in the position like he had for a lot of those top fives, I think that some of them and more of them could fall his way. So give me the over.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the under. Just kind of like Kyle Larson, Bell can tend to overdrive when battling for the lead and kind of try to get more than what the car is more, capable of. Look at Dover, spun out twice side by side for the lead in that race alone. So he's gonna have to keep the wheel straight, keep the car pointing in the right direction. Not saying he can't get to 4 wins, but like kind of like Sam said, we've said the over on Hamlin and Briscoe. We're running out of races for Joe Gibbs Racing to win. So look at Bell in the under. Going to be consistent again. One thing that was kind of never really spoken of was they switched the spotter on him so many times. Be nice if they could just have a spotter, stay throughout the season. That probably will help him, just having the continuity in his ear.
Yeah, I think I said crew chief, but I'm going to say a spotter change because
Mm.
that's I feel like one of the hardest things because the spotters in your ear more than anybody else, more than the crew chief. They play the most pivotal role on the racetrack. So to hear a different voice and just to be able to get adjusted and just make the change is tough. And it seemed like that, at times, just with Bell's frustration, I feel like that a lot of things this season just weren't going the way that he'd want. And he's a guy that probably will be in that 20 ride for a long time. So you know, it's just a matter of getting his rhythm. And if he's able to get back into a rhythm, I think it'd be really fun.
So yeah, with Christopher Bell, I am going to go officially under 3.5 wins.
And that'll lead us into our final driver of the Joe Gibbs Racing stable. That's the guy with his name on the side of the building, Ty Gibbs. He finished 19th in the points this year. He had no wins. His best finish was a second at the Chicago Street Course. That matched 2024, where he also had no wins. Uh, he had five top fives, which is down from 24, where he had eight. He had 10 top tens, which is down from 2024, where he had 12. Average finish is about the same as 2024. This year, 17.86. 24 was 17.42. His average start was actually two spots worse at 13.6 compared to 2024 of 11.4. No poles when he had two in 2024, which that kind of explains the average start disparity. He did have more laps led than Christopher Bell. He had 304 laps led and four less wins. He had four DNFs. He had three in 24. Um, and an interesting thing about this year is that he led a 201 of those 304 laps at the Bristol Night Race. So, Ty Gibbs, obviously, we all know why he has a ride and why he won't be kicked out of this ride anytime soon. But he's in the same area as Bowman, I'd say. Um, Underperforming, except I feel like Bowman's more competitive. Obviously, because Bowman at least made the playoffs. Ty Gibbs couldn't even do that. Um, I don't really know how much there is to say about him other than he needs to take a big step forward. But it's not like if he doesn't, then he's going to lose his ride. Um, but I think that in order for him to improve, it's just overall consistency because it felt like there were weeks where he was up there and like there was a chance. Like he has five top fives, 10 top tens, but then your average finish is 17th, which tells me when it's bad, it's really bad. And we saw those weeks where he was like 30th. Like he was running 30th on pace in a Joe Gibbs car, which doesn't make any sense. Because you look at everyone else in the Joe Gibbs on Joe Gibbs, you're looking at the guy who finished second in the championship, the guy who finished third in the championship, the guy who finished fifth, and Bell finished fifth, but in a Winston Cup format, in a 36 race format, he would have won the championship, I'm pretty sure. Um, and then you look at Ty Gibbs, and he is 19th in points with a 17th average finish, which is like five spots behind like everybody else that's running the same equipment as him. So, I mean, I don't know how much there really is to talk about and how much more you can stress uh, that he just needs to step up and get better consistency wise. I don't know if it's something with the team. I doubt that Ty Gibbs would have any worse equipment than anyone else, considering his name, like I said, is on the side of the building. But he just needs to step up overall, just with speed because we've seen it. We saw it when he was at Xfinity. He dominated, and he could be that driver again. Like I think that he has that talent level. He just it felt like there was a lot of I don't know. He felt distracted. It kind of felt like he was very inconsistent, like I said. So just working on consistency. Um, and seeing him routinely in the honestly, I don't even know if it's a win. I think it's just consistency and try and get like a top 20 streak going or something like that. Something where you're always at least up there and there's a shot. But yeah, Ty Gibbs he just needs to take a big step forward in 26.
2025 for Ty Gibbs was a step back for sure. After 2024, it kind of felt like, all right, we're on the brink of a Ty Gibbs win. It's just kind of a matter of when, not if. And it just never happened in 2025. Ty Gibbs in 2025 kind of puts you on pace with Dale Jr. in 2009 when you look in retrospect to his teammates. You had Hendrick Motorsports in '09 have the three Hendrick drivers finished 1, 2, 3 in the standings, and then Dale Jr. was all the way back in 25th. Now, it's not quite that bad for Ty Gibbs, but his teammates finishing second, third, and fifth in the standings when you're 19th. So it's not even like you're the best guy that missed the playoffs, because you got screwed out of the playoffs on the format. You were just not good enough. And you look at those top fives, those top tens. I'm sure, you know, he was quick on the road courses. So you take a couple away there, all these ovals on the schedule, and Ty Gibbs was a non-factor outside of the Bristol night race. And in that race, he threw it away himself. And that's with lack of experience of running up front, not being in that position week in and week out, which you kind of thought was going to happen after his 2024 season. It was almost a foregone conclusion that he was going to win a race in 2025, and he never came close. That's that's a problem. And like you said, Sam, if his name wasn't on the side of the building, he probably would have been out of the ride after this season. And they are trying everything. They threw Chris Gabehart back onto the pit box to try to save Todd Gibbs' season, get him into the playoffs. And if anything, it might have made him worse. And it kind of just led to Todd Gibbs being woe is me and then just racing the hell out of his teammates at New Hampshire for no reason for 12th position. And ultimately, Denny Hamlin taking a stand for the veterans at Joe Gibbs Racing and punting him out of the way.
Just even looking at his numbers too, like aside from the Bristol race where it's the most laps run in a single race, and then Talladega where he led the most laps, he only led 71 laps. And like that's pretty poor. Like, I mean, there were times I feel like JJ Yeley could have led more laps when he was in that car. So there's something missing there. He's not really showing any signs of like getting better. It seems like every year is just kind of about the same. That there's not really any steps of improvement, and to not see that for a guy that's entering his senior year, it's going to be his fourth full-time season. Like, if nothing changes this year, like what more can you do? If Chris Gabehart left the team, we don't know why, but obviously didn't really help a whole lot with Ty. Like, what is there a reason to keep a guy around, even if his name's on the building, if you're not showing signs of improvement or not getting wins? There's just no ceiling there. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of his fourth full-time season.
And so the only thing you can kind of compare Ty Gibbs to is Austin Dillon. And I mean, this is no direct comparison because RCR equipment in the mid 2010s was nothing like Joe Gibbs Racing's equipment right now, but it did take Austin Dillon until his fourth full-time season to get a win in 2017 at the Coca-Cola 600, and then he won the 500 in 2018 in his fifth season. So maybe Ty Gibbs, it's the fourth year, will get there, and it's kind of now the new deal is give a guy 100 races in the Cup Series to get to victory lane. He's crossed that threshold already, so he's in I think like 100 and in the teens in starts. So he's going to have to get to victory lane this year, which leads to my question. It's not an over under. It's just will Ty Gibbs win a points paying race this season?
No.
Also, no.
I'll say he gets a Bristol win. It's reachable. I'll say he can get his first win this season.
I think he's going to stumble into a win if it doesn't dominate one. I just don't think one guy at Joe Gibbs can go 4 years without winning. That is really hard to do. And I think the stars are going to line up 1 week for Ty Gibbs to get a win. And who knows, maybe that one win comes and it just unlocks, it breaks down the dam that's been holding everything back. But I think he's got to either dominate to a win at Bristol, like Wes said, or he just kind of stumbles into one on strategy or circumstances allow him to win. So, Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole, Wes already mentioned it, but the big thing this offseason is the departure of Chris Gabehart. Again, we have no information on why he's, well, either he left or got fired from the competition director role. I can't imagine it being him getting fired because Joe Gibbs Racing had their best year since 2019. And Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole, 13 wins, up from their 6 in 2024. 47 top fives, that's 7 more than 2024. They had 5 more top tens. And, their average finish jumped up a position and a half. Their average starting spot fell back just half a spot. But you can kind of correlate that one with Todd Gibbs. And they had 2 more poles, a lot of poles between Hamlin and Briscoe. I think they combined for 12, and they led 500 less laps. But look at Christopher Bell; he led almost 1,000 less laps. So you can kind of contribute it to there. So yeah, Joe Gibbs Racing was the team of the season. They were the team to beat all season, and it looked like they were going to get a championship and arguably the most deserving team to get the championship, but it just didn't work out for them. So I think the expectations got to be the same. We'll see who they come out with as the competition director, and if there really is going to be any changes atop the pit boxes, because with the Ty Gibbs situation, I mean, that's kind of awkward that you kind of kick the crew chief to the side for Gabe Hart, and now what are you going to just say? Oh, well, just forget that kind of happened. You're kind of back on top of the box. So Joe Gibbs Racing, let's just right here. Do we think Joe Gibbs Racing is the favorite to win take the championship home this year?
I'd say yes, because it's the same idea as um, we were talking about the last one of these that we made. You know, until I'm proven that something's wrong, I'm gonna say that it's gonna keep happening. And so they've got three guys that, you know, if the format's a little different, if the format's completely different and it's 36 races, they got one guy that we know wins the championship. And then if the format's tweaked a little bit and it's, you know, a different type of postseason of different type of format with a postseason, you've got any of those three guys could really get in there. So I think that in terms of championship, I think that Joe Gibbs is the team to beat because I don't see anything changing.
Yeah, I'd agree. They showed great improvement in 2025. And just like Sam said, they got three guys with Hamlin, Briscoe, and Bell that any given week can go out and win. And especially, I think no matter what points format is getting switched to, I think they're definitely a favorite no matter what format it is. So I would definitely say that Gibbs would be the favorite going into 2026.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me just with Gabe Hart's departure if they have a little bit of an off year, even after our predictions, like just mentioning who might, be over 3 wins, 4 wins. But I think just from what we saw last year, just with the pace, especially later on from Briscoe, throughout the whole season from Hamlin, and then it just being an off year for Christopher Bell, um, and Ty is still right. He's looking and hunting for that first career win. I think that they're going to be the favorite. I think that a lot of these tracks fall into just their team's wheelhouse and where they usually show up as a whole team. They do a really good job of showing up sometimes as a whole team to certain tracks and just looking like lights out. So I would say yes.
So they're probably the only team right now that gives you three for sure, like fire shots at the championship. Right now, as you're looking at it, Hendrick, you're really like it's the 5 and the 24. Chase Elliott and the 9 team, they're not really championship favorites. But when you look at, I mean, Penske's got the 22 and the 12, and you cut it off at 2 for most teams. But Joe Gibbs Racing, that's three guys right there with top 5 in points that arguably could be your champion each year. So, yeah, just by the odds, the numbers, Joe Gibbs Racing's got the most they got the most bullets in the gun to they got the most shots to win that championship, which they haven't done since 2019. And that will be another season preview episode in the books. We will step aside for the week, so come back Monday where we'll be doing Penske and the Wood Brothers in one episode, and then next Thursday will be 2311 Racing. Make sure you're following us, Forward Field Podcast, on all social media platforms. We just hit 900 followers on TikTok. We're just over 600 followers on Twitter and the Instagram and the Facebook. Love to have you guys show us some love over there as well. And the YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, liking the video here, and giving us a 5-star rating and comments on the Spotify as well. If you're listening to this on your way to work, while you're working, on your lunch break, love to hear what you guys have to say about Joe Gibbs Racing as well. If you have any comments or agree or disagree with what we said. So for Sam, Wes, Steve, I'm Dom. We'll see you on Monday for Penske and the Wood Brothers.